I'm going to show you some ways of doing walking meditation. There's quite a few different ways of doing walking meditation. And walking meditation is, I think it's wonderful. I think you'll love it. You'll want to make it part of your daily life. But the simplest way to do walking meditation is just to walk fairly slowly and be aware of each step that you take. Not really focusing on anything in particular, but being completely in the present. And so your whole object is just to be in the present moment and experience whatever there is that's happening in the present moment. The things that your eyes are seeing, that your body's feeling, the sounds that your ears are hearing. The act of walking, the simple act of walking, is your anchor that keeps you in the present moment. Whenever some thought comes along that's about yesterday or tomorrow or someplace else or something's happening somewhere else, you just come back to the simple act of walking. And you're not trying to be really exclusive in your attention, you're just trying to be fully present. And this is, after all, what you're doing when you're doing sitting meditation as well. You can add to this a little bit of refinement. And this is very, very useful for training directed attention. And that is, put your attention fully on the sole of one foot. And then keep your attention on all the different sensations in the sole of that foot as you move it. And then direct your attention to the other foot. And observe all those sensations until you've placed that foot, shifted your weight to it. Then direct your attention back to the first foot. You see, you're practicing directed and sustained attention. And it's in a very relaxed kind of way. You just keep directing your attention to the foot that is going to move, and you keep your attention on it until it's completed the process of moving. Once again, this is a very relaxing, very enjoyable kind of meditation, and it's very good training for your mind, very good training in directed, sustained attention. Now, you can then go from that kind of walking. There's another kind of walking you can do that really begins to develop mindful awareness more. And it is, of course, developing sustained attention at the same time. Now what you do here is I call this three-part walking. And that's where you're dividing each step into three parts. So there's a lifting, and there's a moving, and there's a placing. And so you distinguish the sensations that are taking place in each of these three phases. And you can verbally note lifting, moving, placing, lifting, moving, placing, lifting, moving, placing. So you're practicing a lot of sustained attention, directed and sustained attention in that. But also there's more awareness because you're focusing in more on the variety of sensations. It's more focused, whereas we were walking before, we were kind of being aware of whatever at the same time. We were being open to everything. And one thing about this, you'll find that you don't tend to have as much thinking going on, because if you're really paying attention, your conscious awareness is pretty well fully occupied. There's a lot going on. Now when you're doing it, if you do the three-part walking, then what you want to do, if you hear something that catches your attention, or you see something that catches your attention, or you feel something that catches your attention, is that you just go ahead and stop and investigate what that is. So, or investigate, examine, observe, the right word. I mean, it's a very relaxed, but what you're doing is because your attention has moved, you're staying, you're staying in charge of where your attention is. So since your attention went away from the sole of your foot, you just stop walking, and you pay attention to, so you're walking along, lifting, moving, placing, lifting, moving, placing, lifting, moving, placing, and something catches your eye. Well, you stop, and then you just look, and you get into that visual mode and see whatever's there. You can too, if you want. You can just, when you finish looking at whatever it was that caught your attention, you can just sort of experience the totality of what it means to see for a moment or two, and then bring your attention back and start lifting, moving, placing, lifting, moving, placing, until something else captures your attention in the same way. One of the things that you'll discover with walking meditation is how many wonderfully pleasant sensations there are that make up the present moment. When your mind is not off somewhere else, when you're actually in the present is quite a wonderful place. So you've got the stay in the present moment walking, where you're just using the act of walking as a focus for your attention. And then you've got the directed attention walking, where one step at a time. One thing I didn't mention about that is really helpful. If you're paying attention to one step at a time, and you're directing your attention from one foot to the other foot, make a little pause between each step. The way we normally walk, which you'll tend to do, is before you finish this step, this one's already starting. But you don't want, so try to get the habit of just finish that step. It's all over it. Now you begin the next one. But anyway, that was the second kind, which is where you're directing the attention from the sole of one foot to the sole of the other foot, sole of this one, sole of that one, still allowing yourself to be aware of everything. Then the more focused three-part walking, where something attracts your attention, then you stop and you pay attention to wherever your mind went. That becomes your new focus of attention for a moment or two, a few moments. And you see, the idea behind this is that wherever your attention is, it's there because of your deliberate intention to be paying attention to that. Then this one's really great. It might take you a while to really come to love it as much as I do. It's called 9-part walking. It's like the 3-part walking, except that each of those phases, you divide that up into 9 parts. And so in the lifting phase, and you do it your own way, it's arbitrary, but in the lifting phase, I'll show you here with this foot. For me, this part of it here, I lift where the back half of my foot comes off of the ground. That's what I call the first of the 3 parts of lifting. And then the second is when the side of my foot and the ball of my foot leave the ground. And then the third is where my toes come up and I actually no longer have contact. So there's 3 parts to the lifting. The moving has 3 parts. That's where you come up, move forward, and then you lower. So,
are you focused on the sole of the foot at that point?
Well, that's a good question. Usually I like to do it being focused on the sole of the foot, but you can have your focus elsewhere. And I'll explain that in a moment. So some of the different latitude is. Right now, just how you divide it up into 3 parts. So you've got 3 parts of lifting, 3 parts of moving, and then 3 parts of placing. I usually, when I'm walking slow like this, rather than putting heel down first, I'll put toe down first. And so that will be 1, and then the rest of the foot will be 2, and then I shift my weight, and that will be 3. Then I start over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9-part walking.
Trains
Then
your
here,
balance.
what's that?
trains your balance.
It does train your balance. That's an interesting thing about it. When you walk slowly, you have to pay attention. It's wonderful. It's like this red light that automatically comes on if you ever lose your mindful awareness, because you're taking a step and your mind just goes to something else immediately. You find yourself. Okay, so what do you do in these 9 parts? Well, what I do, you could call this sort of the core thing, is that you try to identify all of the different, you try to identify the collection of distinct sensations that always occur in each of these 9 parts. Okay, so when I lift my heel off the ground, the first thing that I notice is a sort of feeling of decompression of those tissues, and then as it leaves contact, there's a coolness, and then there's something that I think it's the blood rushing into those tissues, and it's sort of a very subtle tingle. So I can always distinguish at least those 3 sensations in the first part of every step. And then in the middle part, there are certain sensations and what I'm suggesting that you do if you're doing this slow 9-part walking is you set yourself the task of coming to recognize the sensations that are always there that make up that particular part of the movement. What is just exquisitely subtle is the 3 parts of moving, raising, moving, lowering. And at first, it may seem to you like, I don't feel much difference, in the sole of my foot. But what I find, I think everybody finds, when you acuity of your awareness becomes sharp enough that, wow, it feels different when my foot's going up than when it's going down. And this is just in the sole of your foot. The sensation in the sole of your foot when it's being raised is different than the sensation when it's being lowered, and different again from when it's moving forward. So it's very subtle, but you pick up whatever you can there. And then likewise, when you're placing 3 parts. So on the one hand, it's like, you're just noticing what sensations are there. But it's a little bit more than that. In other words, you're doing a scientific study so that you can present a report. As a matter of fact, this is exactly how it's taught. And the person that taught me this technique, his instructions were, okay, how's the walking meditation going, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, okay, well, tomorrow I want you to bring me a list of the sensations that always happen in each of the 9 parts. So I did a lot of walking meditation in the next 24 hours. A whole lot of walking meditation and examining it till it all, and it all came clear in my mind after a while, yeah. But the really nice thing about this is now it's familiar. You've paid enough attention. And now you can watch these sensations as you do this 9-part walking with tremendous focus and awareness. It's very delightful. And then once I could do that, the next thing that I tried was, okay, let's do this a little faster and see if we can still detect all the same sensations. It's a great practice, and it will really, if you haven't really been sure about what this term power of mindful awareness means, this is a really good opportunity to discover that and to just firsthand directly experience a dramatic increase in the power of your mindful awareness in a short period of time. Now, as to what Blake was saying, it doesn't have to be exclusively focused on the sole of your foot. That's the way of doing it. But you can do the same thing, observing the sensations in the muscles and tendons, or in the sole of the foot and the muscles and the tendons. And for that matter, it can be the sensations in the entire leg through the entire process. So you'll find people doing this kind of walking, and they'll walk very slowly, and they will very often, especially if you see them making large movements of their leg like this, they're usually examining all of the sensations, sole of the foot right up to the hip at least. And you can do that. So that's the 9 part. Usually if you're doing that kind of meditation, you're being very, very focused. And if there was a sound or if there was some visual object that entered into your awareness, you're just coming back to the focus of these. You've got enough to do. You don't stop in the middle of it to take a moment to investigate these other things that are happening. You just come back to it. So these are some ways of doing walking meditation. So I'd like you to try those and experiment with those, and perhaps see how beneficial they are in support of the sitting practices, and also how enjoyable they are. The first one I called staying in the present moment, but also there's a nice slip of the tongue you can say, call it staying in the pleasant moment, because it's good to discover just how wonderful the present moment is. One other thing that you can do as a part of these walking practices is that you can experiment with walking at different speeds. And, we have this idea of ourself as being the controller and doer. But if you walk at different speeds, you become very aware that there's a certain speed where the body's doing all the walking, the mind can be 1,000 miles away. Right? That's not really involved at all. But then you slow down and you find that below a certain speed, walking is no longer automatic. And now there are all these little decisions that are being made. So your conscious awareness is very much involved in monitoring the process and deciding when to move and how fast to move and so forth. You'll find the same thing too if you're outside walking. When do you stop and turn and go the other way, and things like that. So once again, the introspective awareness into the processes that are taking place in your mind as you're walking is a very valuable part of it. Questions? Yes.
Could you please repeat again the 9 parts?
The 9?
Yeah.
How you do, well.
How you divide it? I missed it.
You just take the three parts, the lifting, the moving, and the placing, and divide them up each into 3. And what I described is how I do it, which isn't necessarily how you should do it or how anybody else should. So, so rather than repeat again how I do it, you just do some walking and discover for yourself. There's sort of a natural part of the movement that's going to lend itself to being a dividing point. Okay? So find that. That's part of the practice, is finding that. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, then what I'm going to suggest that you do is let's do about a half an hour of walking meditation. You can spread out in the yard. Some of you can stay inside. Might go out on the sidewalk. Don't mind if people stare at you as they drive by.